captain's log.
Something strange happened to me this morning.
Was it a dream where you see yourself standing in sort of sun god robes on a pyramid with 1,000 naked women screaming and throwing little pickles at you?
No.
Why am I the only person that has that dream?
I'm your huckleberry.
Like the guy said, you're gonna eat lightning and you're gonna drop thunder.
All right, we're getting started. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Let's see. We're up on Instagram. Hit that like, share the show. Hey, if you're on Instagram and you do the gram, flip it open on the phone and, silence it, let it play in the background a little bit. I don't know. I don't want to eat up your data, but, give us a nod in that direction. Subscribe wherever you are. I have such a good story to tell when we start the show, and Philip Bittner will be joining us in hour 2. All right. Let's do the nice fade, shall we? Actually, I'll just do it when I come in. I'll just do it that way. I should set up some sort of a button where it automatically fades out, but I'm not quite there yet. Welcome to Hal Sparks Mornings Mega Worldwide. I'm Hal Sparks. I'll be Hal Sparksing all day. And both this morning for Hal Sparks Mornings Mega Worldwide and this afternoon for Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide. You can also check out the Substack, which is Hal Sparks Substack Mega Worldwide, or the podcast, Hal Sparks Podcast Mega Worldwide, which now dovetails through the Substack, sort of, the thing. Yeah. It launches from there. I don't know how Political Voices is doing it, but they're going to manage to do it. Hi, Carl. Hope to see you next week at the Flapper Show. I will be in Burbank for the Flapper Show. We're starting afresh after our momentary pause because of the fires during January for my monthly residency at Flappers, where I walk the tightrope of comedy with no prepared jokes whatsoever. None. I don't even let myself. How do you like them apples? I literally, any jokes that pop into my head during the day, which happens invariably, are automatically scratched off the list. I start right towards, like from scratch as soon as I walk on stage, whatever's going on. And show me other comics that don't, by the way, there are other comics that do that, but they all do crowd work. I don't do crowd work at all. It's all in my head, which is great. Anyways, so if you enjoy that kind of thing and you're a Patreon, you'll get to see it live streaming wherever you are. You can watch it there. And of course, if you're in the Burbank area, the driving vicinity, come on down a week from Friday. And then on Thursday, the night before, at the Comedy Chateau in North Hollywood, I'm doing an event with Brian Karam and our dear friend Tom Arnold to talk about the first 100 days of Trump and this documentary that Brian is working on. I have no doubt some of this will be a part of this, but we will be doing comedy, and we'll also be discussing, the nature of the changes we've seen around us, including, quite frankly, what I would argue are a lot of fake changes, a lot of noise, a lot of bloviating bullshit, a lot of temporary Republican wins for stuff that they've been trying to make permanent for a long time, that are basically going to impact rednecks more than anybody else. And as someone who speaks redneck and grew up in Kentucky, I can tell you that these folks will only take it lying down for a couple of years. And then eventually they will do one of two things. They will turn on you or check out. More than likely, when it comes to Trump, they won't have the ego strength to turn on him, so they will just check out. They will just either stop voting or retreat back into the guy at the bar who's sitting there with his elbows on it going, that's, government always doing, hey, man, you know what I mean? Every time you turn around, it's something like JFK, and then they know aliens, and they got tinfoil hat, me, call me, conspiracy, whatever, but, ain't no jobs. Like that guy, you know him, you know him, you love him, you smell him in the diner when you're doing a cross-country trip. Now, that guy came out of his shell and voted Trump in a few cycles, and he will go right back in that direction, bring you guys in. Hi there. Hello. What's going on? By the way, why are my scene transitions? Does it default to that one? I feel like it should go to move, shouldn't it? Oh, maybe it doesn't. All right. Figure it out later. I'm not worried about it. It's working, and that's all we can ask for. Hi, chat room. What's happening? Years? Yes. Well, here's the thing. They don't have an election for a couple of years. Yeah, that's the other thing, too. Is we 2026 will be here before we know it, but there's going to be a lot of shit they can do in the meantime, which I would, again, remind everyone, don't be afraid to vote shame. That's right. Anybody who comes up to you and was all like Genocide Joe and Harris is no better and lesser of two evils, all those motherfuckers, feel free to vote shame the shit out of them. Because, none of us need to, any moralizing from those who abdicated their moral responsibility in this process. Hey, by the way, everybody's been talking about the fact that I got facial hair now, too, because I didn't grow it just to be like him, okay? I did not. Matter of fact, this ain't even my hair, okay? It's a long story, and it involves me having to get real close to a pig and some super glue. And look, a wild boar, oftentimes, when it's having a rectal blockage, I don't need to tell you this. The important thing is we had a good breakfast, and this shit's glued to my face for the time being. That's all we gonna say. That's all I'm gonna tell you. You gotta keep it to yourself. All right. Balt Thanos says Hal needs a haircut. No, he doesn't. No, I absolutely do not. In this day and age, are you kidding me? Are you? Yeah. How compromised would midterm elections be? Elon's thumb on voting machines. I think very little. I think a lot of this will be, the Doge thing ends July 4th of next year, 2026, leading into the elections. I'm sure they will try to do plenty, but it will be put up or shut up time in the next, I would say, 8 months. And I think a lot of the damage he's going to do will be planting seeds or getting information that he's going to use and then backing out of it entirely. And in his way of thinking, I think the power of the U.S. government will be nullified. In terms, the audio is cutting in and out, is it? How's audio everywhere? I don't know why that would be. It's not doing it on my end. I don't see it there. Sound is behind the video. That's very strange. It's good on Twitch. Okay, so I'm being attacked again on YouTube. That's what it is. You might want to refresh your page if that happens. It's just I'm demanding too much of your computer, I guess. That's with my gleaming good looks and my flowing locks and my spaceship. Sometimes it will draw too much energy from the locals. I just want you to know. Yes, the refresh will fix that. There you go. Refresh is always your friend, kids. It's always the first, oftentimes, that is the web page version of turn it off and turn it back on. There you go. And you'll notice the variant degrees if you look in the chat room, how some people are like, it's fine for me, but it's not going to, again, that would be, that's how you know your system is localized. Your problem, rather, is localized. That's how you know. Yeah, Big Balls is going after me and flailing miserably because apparently it's an ironic name. That said, lots to cover today. Hold on, let me see if I can open this guy up and show you a little bit. I gotta say, let's see if I'll show you a couple things. Let's see. Yeah, okay, there we go. I want to look up one element of like the flooding in Kentucky. I want to show you something real quick. There have been, so around Louisville, my family lives in Kentucky, a lot of them, and 12 Kentuckians have died from storm-related incidents according to Andy Bashir, massive floods in this area. Now, when I was growing up in Kentucky, we had, let me show you this, ladies and gentlemen, if I may. We had this kind of flooding when I was a kid. As a matter of fact, at one point, our entire house was surrounded because it was slightly up on a little rise, the way the house was built. It was a dirt foundation, but it was built pegged into the ground. Look out. And because it was like built on a dirt mound that raised it above the yard by just about 6 inches, we were completely surrounded by water like this. The house would look like it was floating in the middle of it. And we had a little canoe, and we would put it at the porch, and you could canoe over to the driveway, which was also raised up in one area, and get out of the canoe and walk up to the car, which we parked up the hill so that it wouldn't get washed away if the rain got any worse. And we could we could all get in the canoe, go to the driveway, walk up the road a piece, and then drive away, but in the Jeep, which was a piece of shite. But there's Pike County, and these are all the people that are doing that are trying to help people there. But the vast majority, and this is not, I'm not trying to victim blame here, but the vast majority of people that are harmed, that have been harmed in this situation, were people who tried to drive through floodwaters. You know those signs that say, you think you can make it, but you can't. Don't drive through this, okay? Don't, if you see the road flooded, go around or stop. It's not that important. Don't try to drive through it. Well, apparently all the funding for those kind of signs has been, turn around, don't drown, exactly. All the funding for those kind of signs has been gutted by, I guess, Trump's team or something, or this idea, or MAGA just believes that like now that Trump is ascendant, they can float. So a lot of folks die doing that. Don't do it. Call ahead and say it's flooded out. People will understand. And if your boss won't, sue him later for your lost wages and get a new job. For fuck's sake. If flooding is coming to your area, and someone in your family is due to give birth, and you're going to be in a situation where you may have to drive in the next 8 days, go stay with a friend on higher ground or something. Rent a room. I don't know. Go to check yourself into the hospital early. Feign cramps and admit yourself early. And then go, it must have been me. I was just, it was a passing thing. But at least you'd be on the other side of the floodwater. That would be a situation where you'd have to go when something's happening. It's important that you just don't try to traverse this kind of shit because it will kill you. And anyway, so this, if you'll notice, again, 12 people have died, enormous amounts of damage. Basically not a peep from Trump. And I would say that it's largely because the governor of Kentucky is a Democrat, and behind the scenes, Bashir asked for a declaration of an emergency declaration. Trump said, okay, rubber stamped it, essentially, and then off they went. But he's not talking about it. He's not supporting it, even though Kentucky would arguably be, maybe it's because he has a thing against Mitch McConnell as well, but he's basically like, fuck Kentuckians at this point. They don't matter. And especially this area of the country, which is, of the state, which is very like Comer related. This is a Comer-esque territory. Yeah. So the other thing is this is some of the, a large part of MAGA right now is in the FA period. Other parts of the country, like Pikeville and Pike County in Kentucky and the Appalachian area around that, around them, is in the FO period. They're already in FO. They've been, and the poorer the redneck area is, the faster they're going to go from fuck around to find out. It's sad. It's unnecessary. It's ridiculous. And in a lot of these cases, completely preventable. Because in an attempt, for example, to cull members, let me show you something. So there was a story about, like, you saw about the people in charge of our nuclear arsenal who were fired and needed to be brought back and blah, blah, blah. There have been a bunch of those things where emergency personnel, FAA personnel, food safety people in charge of, looking into bird flu, they have all been, they were all fired, and then everybody's trying to bring them back. Hold on, let me show you this whole business. So, here's how they did it. Let me just put it this way. Okay, so Elon Musk and his team came in with a last in, first out idea about hiring that they believe is definitely trained on their idea of how business works, which is optional expansion over the financial stability of the company. And so every element of, like, when you hire new people, you're like, hey, we're hiring and we're expanding. And then if you go, oh shit, the expansion didn't work, we have to contract, you fire the last people in automatically, right? That is standard corporate behavior. And when you're doing that kind of work, most of the time it works, I would say. Most of the time. Especially if they're seasonal workers in that regard, like, and you've gotten through the seasonal part of it and you're like, okay, you guys got to go quicker than maybe we would let you go in years previous. But the idea is, last in, first out. And this is a corporate way of hiring. And if you have to downsize after an expansion where you got out over your skis, this is how you solve it. You look at the books and you go, oh shit, we're not making as much as we thought. We're in debt. So the first people that get fired are the last people in. The problem is that in the case of the U.S. government, a lot of the people who are just hired often are only hired recently to deal with an emergency. So the people that have been brought in the FDA and at the USDA recently have been the teams that they have hired temporarily to deal with avian flu. There is an outbreak, and therefore we don't have enough people for this specific outbreak, and we need technicians and we need people who understand this, and so we've got to hire them now. And instead of going, oh, okay, we're in the middle of an emergency with this particular thing, these people were hired for safety's sake. These people were hired for an actual task that is an acute emergency in front of us. They just looked at them like, oh, they was the last people we hired, so we'll just fire everybody that was hired during the last administration, especially in the last 6 months. Fuck them. That's what they did. And that's why egg prices are so high. Because these dumb motherfuckers think they're going to reinvent the wheel in how you deal with a contagious disease that spreads like wildfire through birds and wipes out egg production every time it does. I like my print shirt. I have to say, I'm wearing I've been playing a lot of guitar lately. I've in an attempt to I guess this would be my mental health exercise, but it's also to reinvigorate my own personal creativity. And I have that Prince guitar that I play on, and I find it inspiring to, even though I'm nowhere near the player he is, I find that playing the instrument, that looks like somebody that's a hero is very inspiring. It's kind of like, how like I have like my Captain America shield, and you have like some people do cosplay things, and they find it inspiring to be like that person. As a matter of fact, they did a study that people who are dressed in cosplay uniforms as decent people act even more decent than they do in their normal life when they're dressed the character, because they live up to it, which is why you put uniforms on your military, and why rank and ribbons became an important thing, and why the collars meant something, because the more the more effort you put into yourself, the more civilized you become automatically. So anyways, all that plays out. And for me, instead of just having like props around that I find inspiring, and a musical instrument itself has that inspiration. And the one riff I've been working on trying to get is the When Doves Cry intro little guitar thing, which is very hard. Also, there is no bass line at all in When Doves Cry, which is pretty spectacular. Just saying. He recorded one, and then he took it out. As a matter of fact, he recorded guitar and bass and all this other stuff, and in the mix, stripped it down to almost nothing. Fantastic. So anyways, I got this in the Minneapolis airport because they have a Prince store there now. So, all right. Back to eggs. Do Bat Dance? Yeah. I like Party Man off that record. There's a bass in Kiss. It just doubles the bass, the kick drum. That's all it is. I also love Housequake. I would like to say for the record, like there are amazing songs that kind of people aren't even aware of. Starfish and Coffee. There are Prince songs that I just love, and of course, probably the most sorrowful, beautiful song ever written. Sometimes It Snows in April, which many of you know if you know my acting work. That when I have to cry and I need to go to the well and ruminate on something to make myself cry, that song will do it every time. So much so that I can't even sing through the lines in my head, or I will start tearing up. And I keep it that way. I don't even listen to it for that specific reason outside of work, so that it retains its strength. There you go. Little secret. Some people will put the headphones in and they'll sit there listening to sad music. I can just think the lyrics, they're singing in my own head, and it works like a charm. So anyways, all right, back to work. We got to work. Phil's going to be here in a half an hour, and I'm jabbering on with you guys about Love Sexy. Yes. And let's see. Okay, so this is we're in euphemism hell right now, ladies and gentlemen. I just want you to know this. I've been trapped in euphemism hell. I mean, during Queer as Folk, it was only then that I realized what a disgusting phrase, "Do you mind if I squeeze in behind you?" was. But right now, if you think the Patriot Act was ridiculous, wait till you start reading the stories about Elon Musk's efficiencies and Donald Trump's smart moves, where everybody tries to tiptoe around this delicate motherfucker, while he whimpers like the weak asshole he is if everybody doesn't fall in line. You know how fucking weak you have to be to require fidelity and fealty? You know how weak you have to be? I mean, like, what a snowflake. Anyways, okay, with egg prices soaring, the Trump administration is planning a new strategy for fighting bird flu that stresses vaccinations and tighter biosecurity instead of killing off millions of chickens when the disease strikes a flock. Okay. First of all, fuck off. Really? That's what you're going to do? So while RFK Jr. is going to talk about how the vaccine for measles protects you, is unnecessary, and getting measles when you're young keeps you from getting cancer, or some horse shit that he read on a fucking blog in '93, that while he was jacked up on heroin that like planted itself like a fucking alien egg in his dopey brain. This asshole's going to... vaccination's terrible for humans, but great in the animals we eat. So I thought the whole point was to eliminate these kind of things. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why this happened, because again, they don't give a fuck about the health of this. They're lying to you about their anti-vax stuff. They're all vaccinated. Their kids are vaccinated. They're bullshitting people. This is what a great way to cull the herd. It's only going to kill maggots ultimately. And I suppose people with weakened immune systems who are around them, because you can't tell somebody's political leaning until after they've coughed on you. But the irony, I mean, come on. Stresses vaccinations and tighter biosecurity. Okay, so what? How do you do tighter? What's up? Biosecurity. What do you think that is? Well, I guess you could... you could put more cameras up at the chicken plants. You could run background checks on everybody who works there. You could make everybody who works there take a test to see if they have some sort of like contagious disease. You can give workers that work at these plants more freedom to stay home if they're ill, I guess. All carrot, no stick. And do you think that's free? Vaccinations and tighter biosecurity? Both of those are far more directly expensive for the companies themselves than culling the chickens whenever it happens, because this one's permanent. This has to always happen. This only happens when there's an outbreak. Right? Every year, all day, every day, stress vaccinations, tighter biosecurity, right? That never ends. That is an expense that is here to stay. It is the TSA of chicken ranches, right? Or chicken place. Chicken ranch would be a different thing. I'm in Nevada, so. So, instead of killing off millions of chickens when the disease strikes the flock, okay, the federal government will seek better ways with biosecurity, medication, and so on. I feel so much better, don't you? And so on. And so forth as well. Ugh. Rather than the current standard practice of destroying all the birds on a farm when an infection is detected. First of all, they don't do that. They cull the ones that have been next to them or in the same coop. They don't kill all the birds on the farm. Also, by the time they would test all the chickens, because of the vast number of them, it's too late. You literally bring them into an area where you're fucking testing them, and they would give it to all the other the chickens that have it would give it to the ones that don't. Unless you're going to set up a room at the place where one chicken at a time, and then a chicken. Kevin Hassett, director of National Economic Council, said Sunday on Face the Nation. Hassett said the administration planned to announce further details this week. Hey, what do you think? Head of lettuce or hold your breath? What do you think it will last longer? Further details this week. Yeah. What do you think? Will the details be so on or so forth? What do you think? He said they're working with all the best people in government. When have we heard that before? Including academics around the country and around the world. Academics? Academics? You mean like elites at colleges and universities? And I'm sorry, let me work with me here. So the Trump administration spokesperson is trying to let everyone know that they're aware of the problem with bird flu, but instead of handling it the way they've handled it before, what they're going to do is focus on working with academics in the elite universities in the U.S. and to devise a system wherein they use vaccines and biosecurity, which I assume calls for the cellular tracking of stuff, where food came from, who brought it in, what truck from where, and therefore everything gets a chip. Is that the idea? Everything you eat has a chip in it, so it knows if it really made you sick or it was something else. If you digested it and it ends up in the sewer, clearly that's not what made you throw up, right? So they're going to work with elites to develop a system of vaccination for chickens. Okay, cool. Yeah. So where's the tinfoil hat crowd on any of this stuff? This is, and by the way, this is how it normally is done, you dipshit. It's just that when there's an outbreak like this, creating a specific vaccine, and okay, how would they do it? How would they isolate which particular strain of avian flu these animals on this particular farm have versus one of the other ones? Anybody think it might be mRNA vaccines? That it might be the very technology these assholes have been decrying is completely fucking unsafe? That modifies your DNA and makes you sterile? And then what are you going to do? Eat the eggs of sterile chickens and therefore become sterile yourself? That, you know, like the plot to make us all eat seedless watermelon as we watch sperm counts go down, right? That's the idea. Spokesman for the U.S. Department of Agriculture did not immediately respond to messages Tuesday seeking more information. Well, again, they'll have it next week. Don't get in the way of self-frying chickens. I wouldn't. Normally, when chickens and turkeys start dying from the disease, officials will depopulate or destroy all the birds on the farm to prevent it from spreading. Okay, no, that's why they've started compartmentalizing them in these giant buildings. So that they don't have to. So that if it's in one building, it doesn't move to the other building and that kind of stuff. So they separated these out. But the result of culling millions of chickens per month has caused egg prices to skyrocket. Really? I thought it was Joe Biden's turning down of the Keystone XL Canadian pipeline of sludge oil going over our aquifers that did that. Hold on. Weren't we told all last year that egg prices are up because trucking them places costs so much? Right? Weren't we promised that they would come right down? They would skyrocket. Shit. What was the phrase? They would skyrocket downward. Let me see if I can actually find that stupid. Where you go? I have so many fucking sets of this dickhead talking.
I like wood.
Not quite. Not quite that. Oh, I know where it is. I don't know why I didn't think of this before. Let's see. This is yeah. Oh, you bastard. Play, you silly thing. Takes a minute. I haven't used that button in a long time. Give it a moment, it'll wake up. Where he's like, the numbers should skyrocket downward, was the argument that he was making. Is this guy... Yeah, make sure this audio is in there. Documents. I'm going to fix this while I'm here. Audio. There you go. Where are you? Cancel. Let's go see if it'll play it now. Nope. Bad file. Go away. Anyways, you get it. The number should skyrocket downward, was what he said. With shortages led to some retailers to ration sales. Again, so that they can sell them to restaurants, because whereas you can decide not to have eggs this morning, you don't have a menu in your kitchen. The average price of a dozen grade A eggs in U.S. cities hit $4.95 in January. That's the average. And the USDA predicts it will soar another 20% this year. Now, this next sentence is particularly good. And I think you can see why. Hassett didn't provide many details. I would say you misspelled any. You put an M on the front of it, probably a typo, of how the Trump administration's new approach would work. But he said, so, feel better, it would involve a better, smarter perimeter around poultry farms. He said, so what, you're going to just have like an iron dome that shoots down pigeons that might have avian flu, like you use AI to track coughing pigeons and shoot them out of the fucking sky with a mounted shotgun around poultry farms. He said it doesn't make sense to kill all the chickens inside the perimeter when the disease is being spread by wild ducks and geese. Hey, asshole, it's not spread within the farm by wild ducks and geese. They land because they're fed outside. This is because people want free-range chickens. So by putting them outside, they're going to be exposed to other birds. Yeah, so we should give the chickens shotguns and tell them it's duck season. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins told Fox and Friends that her first briefing was after being sworn in was on bird flu. No shit. We are looking at every possible scenario to ensure that we're doing everything we can in every we can in a safe, secure manner, but also to ensure Americans have the food that they need, whether it's safe or not. The important thing is calories, whether or not you could die from it, and whether, because consuming it or, spreading around might make it jump to humans, and then next pandemic on its way. Who could see this coming? It's like we've gone back in a fucking time machine, and we're looking at when Trump got rid of the pandemic response team. And there were people going, hey, asshole, swine flu, avian flu, the flu, all of these have the reason you got to work to prevent those things, minimize the effect, is because one of them, in a pluralistic society with lots of fucking people with varying immune systems and certainly different health habits and food consumption, one of these might take off, and you should have a system in place just in case, But this is what I would call their fear of big fire extinguisher. That if you ask Alex Jones or Trump or any of these dickheads about the risk of fire, they'd go, it's all dreamed up. It's all been created, fabricated, if you will, by big fire extinguisher. They just saw the money, man. Suddenly, you can't go anywhere. There's a fucking fire extinguisher everywhere. They have these little ones, and then they've got in schools and that kind of stuff, and they sell them to everybody, and the government makes you have one, right? Same shit. Yeah, the fight against big fire extinguisher and big fire hose continues on. The poultry industry has long resisted vaccinating flocks against bird flu because of the potential impacts on export markets as well as the expense. Most U.S. trading partners won't accept exports from countries that allow vaccinations due to concerns that vaccines can mask the presence of the virus. Lord Almighty. We support the administration in their goals to bring down food inflation and cut regulatory red tape and hopefully eliminate this virus, said Tom Super, spokesman for the National Chicken Council. That's a fun job. Which represents the broiler industry, which produces chickens for meat. The broiler industry, which produces chickens for meat. These are the ones that, So these are the guys who need the extra, big broiler. That's who we're fighting against. But he said in an interview that producers need robust trade protection to ensure they don't lose markets. Sorry, not going to happen. What is going to do? You're going to tariff them to make them take our diseased chickens? Because the vaccines in some cases can only mask the symptoms as they're being transported? Also, I would like to say that, why would you be exporting living chickens, living birds? I get it. I get why you would want, export the meat, process it here, send it overseas, something like that. But so you're just breeding chickens and spreading them all. Now, the chicken is an American invention. I will say that it's a North American invention. It is not a naturally occurring animal. It's a mix of is genetically developed over time by the breeding of birds, specifically in the United States. There just weren't any. As a matter of fact, there was such a lack of chickens that there was a lack of eggs when San Francisco started to take off. I've told you guys about the Farallon Islands and the egg wars that happened, where there were no eggs to use as an emulsifier for baked goods, and there were all these fancy restaurants in these San Francisco hotels that were, all these rich people were staying at, and they wanted pastries and the like, but they didn't have any eggs because there were no fucking eggs, because there were no chickens. And there weren't enough ducks and geese and shit, and those things fly all over the place. You need an animal that doesn't fly away. Chickens are a mix between a ground pheasant and these like mini turkey-like birds and all that kind of shit that we bred together to be what are effectively farm chickens that come from a strain of this mixed bird, specifically flightless birds, so they can't get away. Same thing with cows, man. Cows are the same thing. There's a reason, like, Indians don't kill cows and they're sacred. It's because the cows they have aren't cows. They're oxen. They pulled your wagon. They pulled your plow. And if you ate it, your family starved. So make it holy. Leave it alone. Leave the cows alone. And that's the way you protect them. The American dairy cow is a mix between buffalo and oxen. Oxen taste like shit, but they'll do what they're told. They'll pull something. They're easier to train. They're not brutish in that regard, comparatively. And bison tastes wonderful, but will fucking kill you. So we made cows, right? We literally created these animals, all right? Bison is delicious, but it will kill you. It's you're fighting for your meal. So cow flu, well, that's the issue, is that will this pass to cows and the like. Okay, the important thing is that nobody has a problem with government efficiency or trying to make stuff work better or saving the taxpayer money on its face. It's the slapdash bullshit, we know best, insta elite, just add ketamine ideas of Elon Musk and his crowd. That they're like, if we just go back to first principles, why would we even need these people? What are they even here for? Well, first principles would be that the government's primary role is the safety and security, not saving money. It's the safety and security of the American citizen and the prosperity of them long term, not turning a profit like a company is. So the goals and aspirations of any corporation are fine, but they are intrinsically different than a fucking government is. Because you can't fire the poor, which is exactly what they're trying to do. The U.S. government tried to kill all buffalo. Pretty broad statement. Going to need a citation for that one. Very, very specific. The Buffalo Wipeout Act of 1802. So, anyways. Avian influenza vaccines have long been available. Animal health company Zoetis announced on Friday that it received a conditional license from the USDA for a new vaccine. Look at this. Do you think this made the fucking news on Fox? Do you think Fox is doing stories about how the Trump administration is pushing for a new vaccine from Zoetis that will be used on all the chickens in the country that they eat? You think? You think? You think this is you think Maria Bartiromo, I gotta give it to Zoetis, is a great stock to watch? Do you think that's happening? Behind the scenes, they are filleting every elite they can find. Out front, they're like, it's common sense, man. Why you killing all the chickens? It can't all be bad. I mean, come on. Some of them are still tasty. If you cook it, it should fucking kill everything. I don't know. And back behind the scenes, they're like, how does this shit work? I don't know what to tell you, but like, this is scary shit. And the guy over there said it could jump to mammals, and that would be us, I think, if I read the thing. Because mammaries Right, I think I read that once in a book in school. Are we gonna die? Smart person, please tell me so I can go bullshit my followers. Just do it. Here's some money. Go fix it. I'm gonna go back out there and tell them I'll tell them what we're gonna do in a couple of weeks. Just get rid of it, shut up, and make it go away. And then what I'll do, if you guys are okay with this, we'll keep shoveling money at you as long as you don't tell everybody that you solved it. And then I'll go out and I'll either tell them I solved it, or it will seemingly go away on its own, and I can claim that, see, it wasn't that big a deal in the first place. High five. Where are you going? That's what's happening. That's the entirety of the fucking Bush administration, the Trump White House. And Bush did similar stuff with like Cheney behind the scenes. Right? It's true. I'll watch Ken Burns' American Buffalo documentary. I will, Grandma, but I also Ken Burns is marginally full of shit on a couple of issues. You gotta check his work sometimes. Bless his heart. I appreciate it. I mean, I like his baseball shit, but simmer. Okay. Dr. Carol Cardona, a bird flu expert at the University of Minnesota, said tighter biosecurity to prevent cross-contamination and limit outbreaks to one barn requires an incredible amount of work on the ground. Right. Which would also make prices go up. She said, I've seen it work. I've seen it fail dramatically in other cases. You know what never fails dramatically? Mass cook-off. That's what. This is a picture, and the description of it is egg prices. What the fuck is this? You can't even read the egg prices. They're too small, and there are eggs, so I don't know, whatever. All right. For precision depopulation to work, she said there must be effective barriers to transmission between barns, such as ensuring that farm workers don't carry the virus on their boots or clothes. And workers need to be alert for the earliest signs of abnormal deaths, she added. Another barrier is the logistical difficulty in giving shots to up to 3 million birds or more at a single egg farm. Current vaccines are all injectables. Farms might opt to limit them to new pellets coming onto a farm, like the incoming chickens. Vaccinate them as they show up, and then whatever. Vaccines could be economically administered through a farm's water supply and would require new innovations, Cardona said. But until there's a market for vaccines, she said, there won't be an incentive to develop them. Today's technology isn't where we're going to be for long, but it's where we're at. That means she means burning them. This, I gotta say, but every news story about anything that's happening that has some whiff of normalcy that used to exist has the, oh, right, there is a reason we do this stuff. Hey, Elon Musk, this is your first principle shit, dum-dum. It won't work until it works. And if you don't have it up and running and you've got an emergency right now, I don't want to hear about the magic pill that gets rid of arterial plaque if somebody's having a fucking heart attack. I need a defibrillator. Do you understand? And you don't get to take away the defibrillator because you have a pill coming in 8 years. Fuck off. And then this, how in the world does that sentence, knowing that it is coming through an argument through the USDA, through Trump's FDA, how is this not the seed of a tear that Alex Jones goes on right alongside with Elon Musk wants to put a fucking chip in 2 billion people's heads? Is vaccines could be economically administered through a farm's water supply. Well, if they can be done through a farm, what do you think the chances are they could be done through a school's water supply, or a subdivision's water supply, or a city's water supply, or line everybody up and make them, drink stuff like we used to swish with fluoride when we were kids? And half the time, this is a direct result of their last in, first out policy of corporate restructuring that does not apply in an emergency, does not apply in a government. Saving lives is more important than saving money. That's why the government is in debt. That's why. The reason the government has as much debt as it has is because we've had a myriad of attacks on our existence, multiple wars and diseases, everything from the restructuring the economy around AIDS, even that, like we're talking probably $1 trillion in there. So, and again, like 9/11, you could think of all the expenditures after that was the idea of the government going, we can't have that shit happening again where somebody could just grab our planes and fly them into stuff, right? That's why. That's at least the argument. Whatever they hid inside of it in the Patriot Act and stuff because of shit they always wanted to surveil the public and all that kind of stuff is one thing. But what the reason everybody else signed off on it was because this fear of, oh, fuck, if we don't do this, people are going to die. We have these gaping holes in our security. We have these gaping holes in our circumstance that could result in human deaths. So you fix those things and you patch them, and they're expensive. And the only profit that comes from them is not cash. It's not money in a bank gaining interest. It's that your citizens aren't fucking dead. That's the first principle of it. The first principle of government is the safety, security, and thriving of the citizenry. That's its first principle. That is not a first principle. Sorry, I will. I'll keep an eye out for Phil. That is not a first principle for a corporation of any sort. Even a fucking co-op. Even, fucking Richard Wolff's bullshit organizations that he thinks are going to take over how the hierarchical corporate structures, and we could have these co-ops that are where the workers have a say in the product. By the way, how many people who work at the printing presses that make his books get to give notes on chapters of his book? I'll wait. How many is he interested in giving the ability to give notes on his books to? For real. Did he write his books by sitting around in a powwow with people at the printing press? No. So shut the fuck up. Can we at least deal with, like, reality? Is that wrong? Is it too much to ask? I think it is, probably. Oh, boy. So, anyways, this isn't Steve Karnowski from the AP. I don't know why Trump hates the AP, because they are doing him so many fucking favors with just this sentence. Their headlines are the best. I don't know how he could ask for more. Trump administration, they clearly don't call him illegitimate. Plans, that's fucking hilarious. Plans new strategy. No. Plans new strategy? Plans new strategy. No. Has a new strategy, and you would plan to implement it. Right? If it's a new strategy, if it's actual strategy, you don't have to plan it. It's your strategy. The plan is the implementation of it. And then the idea that they're actually trying to fight bird flu is fucking hilarious, because it's really like, as egg prices soar, Trump administration passes the buck to other organizations, hides behind the skirts of elites in their attempt to lower egg prices. They don't give a fuck about fighting bird flu. Again, Trump, the AP is one of your best friends, dummy. Look at how this shit is worded. The only thing, this is what he read and got mad. How they're bringing it up. Stop mentioning it, maybe the price will go down. Plans new strategy. That's adorable. AP, but seriously, anybody at the Associated Press? I know you guys watch my shit. Tell me a story. Fuck does that mean? For real. What is plans new strategy? To fight bird flu. Also, by the way, not a new strategy, apparently. They've done vaccination before, and they couldn't sell them to Europe because Europe went, hey, a bunch of those vaccinated chickens you gave us still were sick and got ours sick and spread it. So that doesn't work. We need to know if they're sick. So better to send them over here and we test them and find out that they're actually sick than go, oh, you're just seeing antibodies, not from their naturally occurring antibodies. That's from our vaccine. That's why. We've done it before. Not new at all. You dumb motherfucker. I would argue not a strategy either, because they're going to let us know the details in a couple of weeks. Maybe. If it doesn't go away. And by the way, they're hoping that they can just burn it off in the meantime, and then they'll have more chickens, and then the chicken price, the price of chickens will go down, because they think it will just, they thought somebody else handled that shit. And then, again, the other thing that isn't new is separating them into different barns and having, biosecurity measures. It's not new. They floated it before. It's expensive, and it's hard to make sure that it actually works. Now, if you implement it, you know who's going to be able to implement it? Giant agribusiness companies. They can afford to do it. They can make certain workers go, hey, guess what? It's like severance. You work in barn 1 and you never go to barn 2. You work in barn 2 and you never go to barn 3 or 1, right? You work in barn 3, you never go to barn 2 or 1, right? This is how we'll separate you guys, and you're parking in different areas. And you have to do one of those kind of like bio showers when you come in and out of work. That's basically what you would have to do. But anytime you have somebody working in one and going to the other, people are just going to let it slip every so often, because it's the threat isn't acute enough all the time for people to keep up with it. So it's not new. What it is you want to go to one that makes it look like you're being smarter and more sciencey and more efficient. But you aren't. Yes, it is still Trump Infrastructure Week. By the way, Trump, oh, fuck me. And Phil, I think Phil will be joining us in a moment. Waiting for him. Trump gave one of these, his little press gaggles. You know what? I'll cover it this afternoon on the show, because we don't have to watch the whole thing because he just blathers on. But the beginning of it is so fucking telling. Dude does not even know what he's signing. You know the guy who hands him the shit that he signs and describes it before he signs it to the press, because Trump has no idea what the fuck he's signing? Okay. They do that with shit he's already signed. Trump can't even... It's not even in his remarks. Like, he can't even explain what the fuck he's doing. So he just steps aside, and that guy comes in and explains the whole fucking, like, what they just did, what they just signed. Because Trump has no idea. Yeah, he just, oh, that's a big one. People, I made a poo-poo. I made a bag of poo-poo. Right? They're trying, and that whole thing with Stu, you can't spell stupid without him, on the Blaze, I'm not the only one noticing that it looks like they are bum rushing this shit through, because Trump has limited time. Now, he made it about the possibility that the public will tire of his bullshit, and that 2026 might turn against him, and he's got to get all this stuff done quickly if he wants to get it done and all that shit. But in the meantime, he's at least noticing it. And I personally think it's because I think they think he's losing his mind, that he's slipping, and that all the things they said about Biden's mental state is true about Trump. And there's a lot of sundowning going on. And the later in the day stuff that he does, he'll start blathering about. I mean, he thinks Ukraine invaded Russia. Just for the record. So, And yeah, here's the thing. I can't believe he said it either. But you could tell by the way he was talking, he was losing track of who he was talking about. And he dare not say anything bad about Putin. So that kind of clicks in as like a failsafe in his rapidly, deteriorating sponge brain. That he starts thinking about this like, they should have stopped this a long time ago. Like, yeah, Russia should have gotten the fuck out. But it was abundantly clear that he didn't quite know who he was talking about. I mean, he called Zelensky a dictator because they've had to suspend elections. Meanwhile, so has Putin, and Putin's been in power for fucking 20 plus years, right? So, these are, okay, this is, here we go. No, we'll get into that later. I'm not seeing Phil in here, just so you know, Andrea. I hope he has the right link. Hope all is well. Let me know. Oh, yeah, let's see. Thank you. Why is that? I don't need a picture. I need this. Got up here. Thanks. Yeah, this was a corrupt file.
The numbers should skyrocket downward.
Yeah, that's the Trump quote I was looking for earlier. I'm going to download that and put it in my stuff. Continue with download only. That's fun. So, Andrea, do we know if Phil is available? Because if not, I want to show this thing now. He should be coming in a minute, and I just don't want to, like, get buried in this, and because it's particularly fucking stupid. Let's see. Yep. Let's see if he's in here. Yeah, the number should skyrocket downward. They absolutely should. Let me show you this thing then. We'll go to here, and then I want to go to stuff. Yeah, here you go. So he answered a bunch of questions and and he's blathering about. I normally don't throw this stuff in the morning show, but this is so fucking telling. Okay, watch this real quick and tell me there's not a heavy fucking fade going on in this. And like how, you know, it's bad enough that, you know, Trump has this whole Vice President Trump, Elon Musk is actually running shit thing. But it seems like when Musk isn't around, there's also a hand holder. Watch, you'll see.
Like, I think nobody ever thought possible.
Yeah, that's like nobody's ever seen before. Mm-hmm. So, 1 second.
Orders, and if we could sign,
yeah, here you go.
Will, you might want to come up here and signing some executive orders. And if we could start with that, Will, you might want to come up here and just explain what we did. Thank you.
Yeah. Will, come up here and tell them what I signed today. When's the last president you ever saw, including Joe Biden, who had someone else explain to you, or explain for you what your executive orders were? Like, honest to God, every president I've ever seen was like, today I signed an executive order that does this, and I've signed an executive order that's done this, and it was 3 things. It's not like they did 14 like they did in one of these days, okay? And it's like he has to be reminded. Links aren't working? Oh dear. Hold on 1 second. It should be in there. I will copy that and send it back to you. Paste. There we go. Make sure it's that one. And hopefully it'll get in here. Now watch this. Same password, guys.
Good afternoon, y'all. A short while ago, President Trump signed three items.
Yeah, he's standing right there. What? 3? What? 3? Fucking 3? He's that. He can't talk about 3 things? Like, I would almost understand, like, the president signed 15 things in 3 different categories, and I'm going to run you through it really quick because we've organized this for his day, and then he'll take some questions or whatever. But why would you step aside for 3 fucking things so that somebody else can tell everybody what you signed? And by the way, is there something, like, enormously complicated in the description? Is there, like, this is some heavy tech language, and like, you know, like Trump with the best words and the best everything can't fucking explain what he did? And listen to what they are.
First is an executive order relating to the affordability and availability of in vitro fertilization and other fertility treatments. These are treatments
I did? Oh, shit.
that have become unaffordable for many Americans, or have been unaffordable for many Americans. And the executive order is a directive to the Domestic Policy Council to examine ways to make IVF and other fertility treatments more affordable for more Americans.
Wow, taking real action to put together a thing to add to a committee's discussion of the possibility of maybe lowering the price of something in the future, sort of. Phil's in the background. Let me show you one more thing from this, and then I'll bring him in.
The second item that we signed was a presidential memorandum imposing radical transparency requirements on government departments and agencies.
Which Doge is not, and therefore,
In keeping with President Trump and the administration's broader commitment to governmental transparency.
And hiding the Epstein files.
What this presidential memorandum would do is require...
Is he dozing off? He's falling asleep. He literally...
As waste, fraud, and abuse is uncovered, as programs are canceled, and ultimately as taxpayer dollars are saved, this presidential memorandum would require departments and agencies to make all of the details of that freely available to the public. Lastly, we have another
Also, why wouldn't that be true anyways? All this stuff is on USAspending.gov anyways. This is, again, these are all PR stunts. The first one does nothing, and we'll set up a committee to talk about ways to make it cheaper for the American people. Cool. Hey, asshole, how about this? I'm sure you got ChatGPT. Ask it. It'll give you the same list of things.
Executive order that President Trump signed relating to independent agencies. This executive order would establish important oversight functions in the Office of Management and Budget and its subsidiary office, OIRA, supervising independent agencies and many of their actions, and also reestablishes the longstanding norm that only the President or the Attorney General can speak for the United States when stating an opinion as to what the law is.
By the way, can speak for the United States in stating an opinion what the law is. A lot of people read that one, that he is now, I am the law. That's not the case. That's that you can't break the law and just say, well, that's how I interpret it. That's not the same thing. He's trying that, don't get me wrong, but this is fucking ridiculous.
Thank you very much, Will. That was the primary purpose of this conference.
What, to let Will tell everybody what you just did? Okay, anyways. So let me bring in our dear friend Philip Ittner, who is waiting in the wings, who no doubt has a word or two to say about the current state of affairs in the world, especially after Trump's weird brain farty experience. I gotta say, like, the heavy fade this asshole is on is just proceeding apace. Welcome, Philip Ittner, host of On the Edge. Subscribe to his YouTube channel, and please check out the latest episode. He put it up on Sunday, and every Sunday, new episodes as best they can. Obviously, he's coming to us live from Kyiv. First of all, how you doing?
All right, strange day here. I can't see you.
Oh, okay, one
normal?
second. Nope, hold on. This. There you go. You should be able to see me now.
I mean, now I got you.
Yeah.
Well, I went to my day started after I kind of woke up and did my read-in that I do every morning, kind of going around various sites and things like that.
Right.
Then I went out to get my beard trimmed, and I was sat in the barber's, and apropos of nothing. I mean, I didn't bring it up. I didn't bring it up. It was being discussed in the barber shop, and I know this is anecdotal, but the consensus was, well, fuck that guy. I don't like Zelensky. In fact, I fucking hate him. But if that idiot and Putin's puppet in the White House doesn't want Zelensky, then I'm going to vote for him.
Right.
So
I think this is more positive for Zelensky.
Exactly
it's like
what
the best
Putin didn't
thing.
want.
Yeah, it could be it was like in many ways the best thing for Zelensky was for Trump to come out, talk straight out of his ass, say like this ridiculous shit about calling him a dictator, saying he wouldn't win. He's got 4%. And by the way, you know where he got that 4% thing? That's Putin talking about the Donbass. But Trump thinks it's the country, and it's not even true in the fucking Donbass. First of all, who the fuck is left in the Donbass except Russians and Russian soldiers and North Koreans, right? Like at this point, like the fact that there's 4% of them going, look, I may be fighting on behalf of Russia in this thing, but I would vote Zelensky in a heartbeat. Like, I don't even know where the fuck you get a 4% wedge in that. It's a talking point from years ago was the idea that this is the same lie they've been telling since Little Green Men.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that Zelensky is a perfect president and that he's beloved by everybody. There are a lot of people who are hypercritical of him, but everybody realizes that the enemy is in Moscow, well, and now in D.C., sadly. They know where their enemy is, and their enemy is not their fellow Ukrainians. And so they're going, if they are to hold elections, and that's a big if, because first and foremost, it's illegal to hold elections when you're under martial law. And the legislature here, the Rada, the parliament, voted for martial law on February 24th when the full-scale invasion started. I spoke to a member of the Rada about this. I have an episode where we outline this. We talk about the fact that legally you cannot hold. It would be an illegal vote if they were to hold an election right now. Not only to mention that, but what do you do about the diaspora? What do you do about the soldiers on the front line? What do you do about Ukrainians who are currently living under occupation, but will eventually, in Kiev's mind, be liberated? They don't get a vote. So the idea that he's a dictator and an unelected president, this narrative that comes straight out of the Kremlin, is bullshit. It's a lie. It's a straight up lie. Look, I mean, I hate to pat myself too firmly on the back and say I told you so. But what have we been talking about for 3 years now, Hal?
Totally.
Trump is compromised by Vladimir Putin. I can say that categorically now. Before I had to hedge it with I don't know how much, I don't know in what capacity. I mean, is the Steele dossier got some validity to it?
There's no other answer
the Mueller
for it.
report.
There's no logical reason to it.
Yeah, the Mueller report was obstructed. It was not, it was not definitive. It did not come to a null result. It was obstructed. I have always said that Trump is compromised by Vladimir Putin. I think personally, he is working in conjunction, direct hand in glove with the Kremlin. That is my belief because I have seen the way that they have manipulated other politicians and other political parties and other body politics around Europe. And they're doing the same damn thing in the United States of America. I see their grubby hands all over our body politic and our elections in the United States. Not that I want to cast aspersions on the elections, but the Russians are in there and they're fucking us up. And Trump is in office because of them. Trump knows it. He is their bitch. That's my personal opinion. But now I can openly say, without hedging anything, without kind of making conditions, he is a useful idiot at best. He is working with the Kremlin, spreading Kremlin talking points, and he's in the damn Oval. We have a real fucking problem here. We got a real problem. We got to wake up to it. And I am to the point where I am starting to say we need to maybe perhaps I'm fully aware, even though I've lived over here and I feel a little disconnected to the United States. We got to do something. I don't know what it is we have to do, but he is so clearly marginalized by a foreign power that we have to do something about this. We can't.
Well, yeah,
we can't wait for the midterms.
There are a bunch of. Yeah,
I don't know
there's
what
also.
we do.
There's a growing sense of that in even Republican senators. The ones that went over to Ukraine that were over there weren't pulling punches. I mean, we've always seen, Lindsey Graham be, more on the side of Ukraine than almost anybody else. But you had another Republican senator, I'm blitzing on what their name was right now at the top of my head, but literally saying that, like, Putin needs to be in jail
In
and
prison
killed.
or executed?
Executed.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah.
Coons? Was his name? Was it Coons?
I'm not sure. Hold on. Let's see if I can find who it
But
was.
I know the video
yeah.
you're referring to. I mean, the Senate certainly has to wake up. The House, I would like to see. But also, in addition to that, I mean, look, we haven't spoken since the Riyadh meeting. And, that is built to that. Oh, what was his name?
Wicker. Robert Roger Wicker. Yeah. Okay. He says his line. Hold on. I believe let's say
Republican.
Yeah. Hold on. He's the chairman of the Armed Service Committee. Yeah, and he goes, Trump thinks Putin wants peace. Well, I read a booklet in school called Can You Trust the Russians? I think the only thing we can trust the Russians to do is act in their own interest, but Putin has violated every principle of international law, he said in response to a question from a CNN reporter. He says Putin should be imprisoned for life, if not executed. That was his phrase. And I mean, zero lies detected. It's true.
Yeah. Not a big fan of capital punishment, but in this case,
right.
Look, and to conclude my prior thought there is, I mean, if you look at the meeting in Riyadh, that is built for failure. It's purposely built for failure. Okay.
Oh my God.
On one side, the American delegation. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, did you see the statement by the American team when they came out of there yesterday? I don't know if you saw the statement by Rubio.
I saw a lot of
it was Rubio and like three of them. They did a little press gaggle thing. And it sounds a lot like they're playing for bird flu. We're planning on working on a future strategy for talks. Like literally the Russians came out with a statement about it, mocking it as a concept. They basically said,
"Oh, they're laughing at us."
Yeah, they think it's fucking hilarious. And the idea is like the Americans think that we have agreed on a system to start talking about things, like, which is so fucking meaningless, right? I thought it was going to be done in 24 hours. I mean, everybody needs to remind Trump of this the whole time. And one of the reasons why he's being so slapdash and what he's talking about it and why he's whinging about it so much is because he said he could fucking fix it, and he absolutely can't. And so,
well, here's the other. Look, so our delegation comes over, and it's Marco Rubio. It's Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, and it's some investment banker, venture capitalist out of Florida that he seems to like. Mm-hmm. None of them have any expertise in the region. None of them have any depth of knowledge, and that's due in no small part because everybody who did has been broomed out of the State Department. Okay, because their positions in the State Department, being experts in Russia, they were aware of the threat from Russia and were very anti-Putin. As they were anti-Putin, of course, that meant they were anti-Trump. So they all got broomed, whether it was Samantha Powers or whether it was, I'm gapping on her name again, the woman who wrote "There's Nothing for You Here, Love," the great diplomat that we have from Lancashire. Smelt. No, anyways, I'm not going to pop into my head. But the point is, we have dismantled our experts on Russia within the State Department, and we're left with these yahoos who don't know what they're doing. Then you look on the other side of the table, and it's a former ambassador to the United States. It is the head of investment banking in Russia, a very smart guy who I know somebody who used to work for him, and I followed her on socials. So she was his executive secretary, and so she'd travel around the world with him, and the dude was very effective. And then to top it all off, the cherry on the cake is Sergei Lavrov, who is not kind of what he used to be. He may be getting a shot in the arm because they're winning. But Sergei Lavrov, even on his worst day, could run circles around Marco Rubio. This is the guy who outsmarted us when it came to WMD in Syria and called our bluff on it and deterred, stopped us, basically decapitating Assad, 15 years in advance of when he finally fell. Think of all the lives that could have been saved. But Lavrov is, make no bones about it, I've seen Lavrov in action time and time and time again. The dude is a world-class diplomat, and he is better at it than, I would argue, pretty much anybody, not only in America, but on the Western side of the diplomatic sphere, with a couple of exceptions. This is an embarrassment. This is bad. Now, what have I said, Hal? All these years that we've been talking, is if the West and America, if America or the West, whatever, abandons Ukraine, Ukrainians will not stop fighting. I think there's a perception that they can leverage Ukraine, but Zelensky has already embarrassed Trump, which is why we had this absolute screed in the last, hour and a half or something, that he came out with this thing calling Zelensky a dictator and things like that. Totally unhinged. Because Zelensky faced down assassination squads from Putin. Zelensky has lived with constant threat of being killed, directly, targeted and killed by Putin. And he didn't run. He didn't tuck tail. You think he's going to run from Trump? You think he's going to bend the knee to Trump when he won't bend the knee to Putin, who really wants, to get in? What this means is that if, America withdrawing its support is going to be very difficult. It's going to cause a lot of pain and suffering in Ukraine. It's going to put a lot more people at risk, and a lot more people are going to die. And we're just going to sit on the sidelines and watch this happens? Trump goes on and on about, I want to stop the killing. Well, guess what, buddy? It's about to get a lot worse here. And I don't mean to be overly dramatic about this, but if we run out of Patriot missile systems, which apparently Zelensky is indicating is a real issue, we here in Kiev are going to, this increases the threat to my life personally, exponentially. Okay? But I got skin in the game, and I'm not leaving. All right. I understand the threat, unlike these morons from MAGA who will now fall. They'll fall in line. The Benny Johnsons of the world, the Tim Pools of the world, and all the flock that they
well,
bring
because
to the.
If Trump says it, this is important.
If
This
Trump
is important.
says it,
If Trump says it, they get an okay. Now, when they would say these things on their own, it was clearly coming from tenant media and then being fed their talking points by the Russians. It is much easier now with Trump parroting them that they can just act like they're just saying this out of fealty to him. And that's always been the plan. I wanted to ask you about something. So this is a report from the Lansing Institute. It's hold on, let me bring this in so I can show you. There you go. There is growing concern that Russia may soon deploy suicide bombers in Europe, using Russian migrants to fuel instability and bolster the appeal of far-right political movements, many of which received Kremlin backing. So there were two. It was a drug addict in Ukraine who got some explosives and was basically ginned up by Russian operatives, essentially, to show up at this Ukrainian recruitment center and blow himself up with these things. There was another one that happened in Mykolaiv that was directly tied to them, going after what they called compatriots to carry out these attacks. Okay, the FSB's involvement suggests a tactical shift, one that increasingly relies on so-called compatriots to carry out attacks. These would be the people who they're fellow travelers in that they both hate the same thing. You find people who hate the West, and you're fighting the West. So even if you would kill them if they step foot on your lawn, you use them as tools by supplying them with money and help so that they will carry out these attacks. And then you can use the reaction by the public for political aims. And largely what they've looked at it is like, do these kind of suicide bombings or attacks being ginned up and paid for by the Kremlin, all the stuff they say about like the FBI being behind these little groups that are domestic terrorists or whatever, that whole storyline comes from what the FSB and the former KGB still does and is actively doing. And so Western intelligence agencies have obtained information about a newly formed Russian unit tasked with sabotage, assassinations, and espionage in Europe and North America. This clandestine operation, known as the Special Tasks Department, reportedly operates under Russian military intelligence and coordinates covert actions against the West. If confirmed, the use of suicide bombers could be part of a broader interagency strategy with Russia's security apparatus. However, the FSB's involvement raised the likelihood that Russian or Ukrainian nationals, many with relatives in Russian-occupied territories, could be coerced into carrying out attacks. The FSB has previously used blackmail tactics to pressure Chechen migrants in Europe into collaboration. Given these developments, security analysts believe Russia may soon conduct a series of suicide attacks targeting military, energy, and government infrastructure across Europe and Germany, France, and the United Kingdom. Austria and Poland considered the most likely targets. They're not going to do the United States because the idea is that if we get a whiff of it and it happens on Trump's watch, you can't blame anybody else and can't say, see, this is going to come here. Why are we even involved in this kind of shit? So but if they do trigger one to happen because they're trying to scare people or focus people on the immigration issue, which is fading from, the conversation a little bit. If they try to manipulate that or give Trump something, a dog, a tail to wag, or a dog to wag as the tail, they can set up one of these things. I think the downside of it is higher than the upside. That doesn't mean they will not do it, though.
Well, there's another thing that is entirely possible, and because we know for a fact. We know by our own investigations that they weaponized immigration. I mean, there is a NATO investigative report that came out in 2016, which was announced by Supreme Allied Commander General Philip Breedlove, back in 2016, in which it said, the Russians are weaponizing migration. And the thing you have to understand about the Russians is that when they find a technique that works, they repeat it and they repeat it and they repeat it. So I could see a situation where maybe it won't be a Ukrainian blowing himself up domestically in the United States, but some guy that is brown, take your pick, Middle Eastern or Hispanic, and because what they are clearly trying to do is get a reactionary right wing uptick. I mean, we see it in Germany with the AfD. I mean, that is a direct response to immigration, and so that causes tension and divide within the German people. And if you don't think it's happening in the United States, you're being naive.
Right.
They have been using immigration as a weapon against us. That's why. That's part of the reason, at least, why. The border and immigration has become this massive issue, because in some small part, or in some part, I don't know how small, Russia is putting pressure on that divisive point. We all along the way, we have got, and I've been screaming in the void, and today I feel very vindicated. We've got to wake up. We got to wake up. We are at war with Russia because they are at war with us.
Right.
They launched a war against us in the West. All the reasons that are being put out there that we are the ones that caused this war by a NATO expansion or this, that, or the other thing.
Right.
At the end of the day, Putin decided sometime in 2015 or 2016 to launch a campaign, an information warfare campaign. Now, when I say information warfare, people are like kind of dismissive of it. Right. There's a body count. People are dying. We have Donald Trump. We have Moscow to thank for Donald Trump. Is my firm belief. And all the deaths that happened during COVID are on Trump and ergo on Putin. I put it firmly in the Kremlin's backyard. Put it at their feet. We've got to stop pussyfooting around. And I don't mean. And look, the executive is compromised. The entire executive is compromised. We have an entire movement in the country that is dancing to the Kremlin's tune, and they are laughing. They're popping champagne corks. They're enjoying every second of this, and they're winning. They're the here on the battleground, the kinetic war that's happening. They're losing. They're losing. They're not gaining. They're not gaining significant ground in Donbass. Ukraine is moving in through Kursk in the Russian Federation. They're making advances. There's no chance in hell that Russia is, even with America removing support, I firmly believe, because I've been to the defensive lines out in Donbass, they're not going to get to the objective they need. They need Odessa, and they need a change in the power in the change of the ruling political party in Kiev for something more. They think they're going to be able to get something that's more friendly to Russia. It only shows their delusion. Anybody who has even a whiff of Moscow about them will be absolutely pilloried and driven, out. We might, if there is an election, let's say the Rada gathers, they lift martial law on condition that there will be a ceasefire. They lift martial law, and then they start a process of elections. I don't think that's going to happen. If I was a betting man, I'd be willing to put cash down on that. But let's say it happens.
Yep.
Your leading candidate against Zelensky is Zaluzhny, the first general during the full-scale invasion, who's kind of been shipped off to London to kind of be out of sight, out of mind, which is, look, it's politics.
Right.
But he would be a strong candidate against Zelensky. I don't see anybody else. There's maybe Kuleba, the former foreign minister, but he just doesn't have the support here that Zaluzhny has. So I think it would come down to either Zelensky or Zaluzhny you're going mano a mano with one another, and who knows who would win that one. But either way, it would be bad news for Moscow, because Zaluzhny he's a patriot. He killed hundreds of thousands of Russians. I don't think Moscow is going to be happy to see Gennady Zaluzhny in
and it's not going to be some unknown guy that just springs onto the scene that's suddenly selling himself as the Ukrainian Navalny or something like that. It was operating, somehow like nationalist interest, but to the left of the appearance of Zelensky. Like, it's just absurd. And again, they gotta. It's at some point they're not. I guess they won't have a choice. They're going to come to this conclusion because this whole, like, we're going to start having the idea of what we will plan on as far as having talks. In the meantime, you can't undermine the military of Ukraine during your talks if you're automatically softening that response while Russia builds up, because it'll be obvious that you're in Russia's pocket, and Trump and his clan are trying to hide that poorly as much as they can. And in the meantime, the Europeans are stepping up. They are, they are providing, a lot of material support. And at one point, I think one of the, I want to say it was Norway or whatever, one of them was saying that, like, Ukraine is creating, 40% more weapons in their plants and their manufacturing than any other European.
It's that they're that may also be true, but I think you might be crossing your wires there. It's Ukraine is currently producing domestically 40% of their warfighting force. Okay, so they're almost about at halfway. No,
specifically, I'm talking about.
Well, both things might be true. Both things might be true. But
their military production, right?
Their internal domestic production is already supporting 40% of the war effort, and in the next year to 18 months. 4 new massive military plants that are being built by Germany's military industrial, their state military producer, Rheinmetall. They're going to be building 4 massive factories out in the west of the country, much more protected, harder to hit, that sort of thing, One's going to be doing tanks. One's going to be doing infantry fighting vehicles. One's going to be making like gunpowder and, you know, the stuff that you put into munitions. And then one is going to be exclusively making artillery shells. Meanwhile, all around the country, there are these networks of subterranean and underground printing centers where they are just 24/7 churning out 3D printed the
drones.
body of the drones that then, you know, grandmas instead of knitting camouflage netting have now started to put in, you know, props and motors and then learn how to solder to the control chip. That is they are producing massive amounts of drones. And add on to that before he left, the Biden administration sent as much as they could get over here. They have the capacity to make it through 2025 fighting. They're going to be deficiencies again, like things like the Patriot missile system. Maybe they start running out of HIMARS or ATACMS, but they will be able to keep fighting. And what that will also enable them to do is something that's going to drive the Trump administration nuts. Is that they are going to the Trump administration clearly is going to try and freeze out Zelensky and the Ukrainians. But here's the problem. No matter what agreement they come to with the Russians, Kiev's always just going to say, go fuck yourself. And then what do you do? What do you do? If you're Trump, what do you do? You have no leverage over Zelensky anymore. You're insulting him, calling him a dictator. You're clearly paving the way to fully remove support. And all that will mean is that you don't have leverage over Zelensky. Zelensky can tell you to go, you know, take a long walk over a short pier when you come to him with your great peace plan proposal, which basically capitulates everything to Moscow, which is what they're going to do. And the Ukrainians will say no, and the Ukrainian people will back Zelensky because they know the threat, and they'll continue to fight. We're all exhausted here. There are people who are upset with Zelensky. There are people who are so tired that they are absolutely willing to just go, fuck it. Let's just stop. I've lost too many friends. I'm tired of all of this. But that is a very, very small, comparably, percentage of the population. Everybody's tired, but nobody is willing to give in to Russia because everybody knows what that means. They know what it is to be colonized. And look, the other thing that Russia, DC, and even Brussels, they all need to understand. There was a massive shift in the mentality of this country after 2014 in Maidan. It was this: we are not a colony anymore. We are an independent nation, and we're never going to bow or bend the knee to Moscow again. It was a significant change in the population's general attitude and perception. That has not changed. If anything, it's gotten stronger after all the blood that's been spilled. They're going to keep fighting. So what do America is just going to sit and watch. The Europeans will not sit and watch. The Europeans, you're right, are going to step up. Look, they still rend their clothing in Europe over the tragedy of Srebrenica. What we're about to potentially face here in Ukraine is going to make Srebrenica look like a Boy Scout jamboree. Okay, not to be dismissive of Srebrenica. That was an awful massacre.
Or jamborees.
But this is going to, or jamborees. This is going to be really bad, potentially. And I don't think the Europeans are going to passively sit and watch. There's a lot of discussion in Europe right now. A lot of, they're kind of trying to find some common ground. The UK Prime Minister saying he was willing to send troops in here for a peacekeeping mission has been kind of met, especially by the Germans, is like, don't be saying that kind of stuff. We don't want to commit to that. But
here's the thing:
eventually they'll get on the
Germans,
same page.
if the Germans are going to build 4 military factories and they're going to be using military companies, German companies specifically, there's going to be Germans in the country. And if you blow up one of those factories, or if Russia hits one of those as they're being built, they're going to kill some Germans. Period. End of story. I don't give a shit if the Germans are carrying arms or whether they wear business suits or fucking overalls. You're going to kill some Germans if you do that. And the German reaction to that will be swift and pronounced and obvious. So one of the things that people are doing, I think, and it's a strategy of the Europeans as well. It's like, don't put soldiers in there, but put business people around and your commerce around, so that if the Russians start bombing an area, you're basically using economics as your human shield in this situation. And again, this goes towards the deal that the Biden administration was making about rare earth minerals. Because if you send in American companies to be part of the extraction process of rare earth minerals close to the Donbass or close to the fighting lines, or even in just the eastern part of current Ukraine, with beyond the front lines, or behind the front lines deeper in Ukraine, there are going to be a bunch of Americans running around there. Not, American service people, but American technicians, American, geologists, American and their families, if they go over there with them part of the time, right? So this is, by the way, what I was referencing earlier. Ukraine is making weapons faster and cheaper than anywhere else in Europe, and that's a problem from the Danish PM. He goes, Ukraine can make weaponry faster and cheaper than anywhere else in Europe. We have a problem, friends. If a country at war can produce faster than the rest of us, that's a problem, right? Europe's defense spending has soared in recent years, but the problems remain. Now, this is, Trump was originally trying to undermine NATO by forcing everybody to pony up. He thought they would break. He thought they were not counting on NATO stepping up and raising their expenditures. He was expecting them to back away from it and drop it before Russia invaded Ukraine. So you undermine NATO. You basically go, we're not going to fuck NATO. We don't need NATO, right? During his presidency, knowing now that Russia was planning on this attack. The attack would be the second domino at the very least in this circumstance, that undermining NATO and breaking it up, which is what Trump tried to do in his first term, was so that everybody would be on their heels when Russia attacked Ukraine, and they would be able to move through the country swiftly. But that didn't happen. And that, not only did that not happen, but by punting their attack a year to get back into the next fighting window, Russia had to delay what they were doing, amass their troops. Biden saw it coming, and NATO got stronger, added countries, and everybody started raising the amount of money that they were putting in. And now Trump, in an attempt to push this from 2 to 5%, is like bragging on his previously built thing. Well, Russia hates that shit. Russia doesn't want NATO countries, having businesses in Ukraine and raising their military expenditure as a part of NATO to 5%, right? That was all a bluff. And the Europeans, interestingly enough, as intransigent as they have been, as wandering as they have been all during this, especially Germany during the beginning of the war, have sort of woken up to the threat, it seems, are getting more and more aware.
Yeah, definitely. And now it is also an existential threat. Because look, let's be honest. European members of NATO have been pretty lazy. They have sat on their laurels when it came to providing their own security, because our defense spending is so enormous that we basically have been carrying the Europeans. I don't say that in terms of like, well, screw those Europeans. Look, It's just the state of play. It's how it worked out. We can fix it. We could, we can make NATO work better. My concern is that, and I don't know if Trump is going to be able to do this, but if he tries if he is successful of leaving, taking the U.S. out of NATO, again, I don't think that's going to happen because he would have to jump through too many hurdles with Congress and everything. And I think it would be a very difficult vote to get passed, despite everything politically. Yeah. Because I think generally people in America look upon NATO and having European partners militarily for security reasons. I think most Americans would support that. So I'm not saying it's going to happen, but playing devil's advocate, if America leaves NATO and it has to be a European security force, it would be a hard thing to do, but I think the Europeans would eventually do that. And of course, with the thought in mind that we got a real problem with Russia. And it's an existential threat to us. But the thing that gives me pause for concern is that this is exactly what Alexander Dugin wrote about like 20 years ago. Dugin, if you don't know, I don't want to give him too much like significance because there's an entire movement that happened, this kind of shamanistic kind of like, kind of Rasputin kind of, in the dissolution of the Soviet Union, who were embittered by the fall of the Soviet Union. And they came out with all this kind of like really dark conspiratorial, shadow ideas of how the world should work out. And Dugin writes, and it's either in Fourth Political Theory or in The Making of a Multipolar World. Those are his two really big books. They're both rubbish. Nobody should read them. They're crap. Dugin is not a smart man. He is a lunatic, is what he is. And that's part of his draw. That's part of his the attraction Russians have for him. The wild, crazy man of the woods that comes out and reveals the truth. Anyhow, what he wrote about 20 years ago is the Russian plan that is more or less playing out. First, what you do is you break off Britain from Europe.
Yeah.
Brexit. Because the Russians know that you will never break the Anglo-American alliance.
Right.
That's that transatlantic alliance, the special relationship, that's never going to be broken. So instead of trying to get Britain to break off from America, what they've done is they've focused on getting Britain to break away from Europe. Well, that happened with Brexit.
Right.
Now, it looks as, to my mind, what gives me pause for concern is that are they now trying to orchestrate the second stage of divide and conquer, which is to divide America from Europe, the Anglo-American,
right.
Britain and the U.S. away from Europe. And that gives me concern. I don't know if it's going to happen or not.
There is a flaw.
He literally wrote that down 20 years ago or so. He wrote down, and it's coming to pass.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a coincidence.
Not at all. And I would argue that there is a fatal flaw in that idea, which is good old white supremacy. The silver lining in something so awful is that the vast majority of the people that brag about their worth in this world in Trump land came from Germany, came from the UK or big parts of like German French areas of Europe, or view themselves as European whites, and therefore they're not going to stand by and watch their homelands obliterated or turned, and that's the issue with it. If it was Asia, they kind of wouldn't give a fuck. If and you could argue that we have been in the process of doing that because we didn't need any help doing it, separating ourselves from China in that regard. Let me show you something that related to something we were talking to earlier, and I wanted to look it up and find it. This is it's an article on weaponized the weaponization of migrants. That was an opinion piece in the Washington Times or whatever. But it goes, how can migrants from Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela suddenly climb from less than 1% of southern border crossings, illegal encounters, to 20%? Totalitarian regimes have made life intolerable in those nations. That's sort of true. But historically, only a few families have been willing to be able to pay their loved ones to the U.S. So why have the cartels and ruling elites of these three countries helped people through? Why is the Cuban regime suddenly letting people leave? It's the same migration weaponization that Russia used against its proxies and the EU. In a copycat action of Belarus, the Cuban regime allowed charter flights into Nicaragua. So did Haiti, by the way. When Cubans arrived at the Managua airport, they were approached by coyotes from Mexico. The number of Cubans using this, quote, easy way through Nicaragua was so high that U.S. issued sanctions against those airlines. It is also why Nicaraguans and Venezuelans are seen as the biggest number of people coming in or getting special protections, because it was all part of the plan. When Trump gave a special pass to Venezuelans, he was actually giving a special pass to Cubans coming into the country who would relocate to Florida for a period. And then later on, you'll broom out the ones you don't like. And those people will already be in there and they'll go, hey, I'm not Venezuelan, I'm actually Cuban. But you got in and you were able to stay because of this special protection he gave to Venezuelans. Soon, Venezuelans became the largest nationality for illegal border crossings in the U.S. And expulsion of Colombians skyrocketed from 10,000 to 106 in 2021 to 167,000 in 2023, while apparently that's the open border policy that they were talking about. A 16-fold increase in 2 years. In all, illegal immigration to the U.S. has changed, with Mexican immigrants making up only 25% of illegal migration. The much-discussed Haitian immigrants, also part of the regime's scheme. The Associated Press reported how chartered flights from Haiti to Nicaragua have flown 31,000 people, accounting for 60% of the Haitians arriving at the U.S. border, replicating the Russia-ordered Belarusian charter flight scheme. In the same manner, and likely on Russia's orders, the Cuban, Nicaraguan, and Venezuelan regimes are sending people to the U.S. border and streamlining the logistics for other nationals. This, too, is reminiscent of what happened in Europe, where individuals from Russian proxies, such as the Syrians, are the largest share of immigrants. Many factors contribute to illegal immigration, but its spike in the U.S. and EU is explained by the weaponization of migration by totalitarian regimes backed by Russia. They cooperate with this policy, build joint routes for migrants, and use cartels. The U.S. border will never be secure if Cuban, Nicaraguan, and Venezuelan regimes, protected by Russia and with cooperation from drug cartels, can turn on the flow of migrants at will. Western democracies are under attack. This zero lies the tech.
Well, and I'm sharing with you. I'm sharing with you. This is 2016. I'm sharing you with you the Deutsche Welle report of breedloves, and that's 2016.
Right.
Okay. All they've done is improve that technique. I mean, there's the interview I did with Philip Obeji in Nigeria, who talks about the Wagner Group taking over this band there's a stretch in Africa, between North and Sub-Saharan Africa, and there's a town in the middle of it. It runs from the Pacific to the Indian Ocean, and it's this area where you can, it's comfortable to inhabit, but they're coming to this one town, and once or twice a week, the Wagner guys load up African migrants and drive them across the Sahara to the Libyan coast and put them in dinghies and send them across the Med. It's the same technique. If we don't think that they're doing it in America, and Venezuela has long-standing ties with Moscow as well, there's that too. This is not a mistake. This is not just kind of like
it's not an accident of time. Right.
It's not an accident. This is being orchestrated.
The Wagner Group mercs are Nicolas Maduro's security detail is all Wagner guys. Now, think about that for a second. Like, Wagner used to be seen as a private organization like Blackwater or She or something like that. But in the last couple of years, because of what's happened in Ukraine, Putin has come straight out and said, no, they're an official group from within. So let me get this straight. Nicolas Maduro is supposed to disagree with Moscow at some point when his entire security detail works for the security service of Russia directly. Not these guys, I guess, we're Russians, but we're basically guns for hire, and you can trust us because we're more loyal to our paychecks than we are to Vladimir Putin. We know that's over now. It has been for a couple of years. And these guys basically have Maduro surrounded. If he gets off the res, he's done. They'll just snuff him. Yeah. He's going to fall out a fourth floor window and bounce off some bullets. And
they'll have somebody else in the wings.
And they'll have somebody else waiting in the wings. Exactly. And so, just extrapolate this out to any country. What if the Emir of Qatar, his entire security detail was Blackwater Army contractors? Like, how would the world react to it? How would they take seriously about the independence or the safety of the Emir of Qatar in that circumstance, or anywhere? Just think about it in those terms. It's fucking absurd. Maduro dances to, like, did you ever see my favorite of the newer Bonds is Quantum of Solace, and largely because of the opening car chase part of it. Fucking brilliant. But the idea is that they take this like green tech billionaire who's he's like a Elon Musk. He's allegedly, believing in environmental causes and all these kind of things. And he wants to take over this one country, and they're like, everybody's like, everybody dug for oil here and nobody's ever found it. Turns out he doesn't want oil. He wants the water. The water table is under this section of the desert down there, and they will control the water for all of South America once he controls this. And he has this, this leader of this country who's like, you'll sign over the mineral rights, whatever we find is ours. And he goes, I'm not doing that. And he goes, you'll sign it, or there will be a a bullet in your head, and somebody else will be wearing your uniform by the time they carry you out of the room. Basically, that's principally what's going on here. That is principally what's going on in this. But it's direct. It's not some elusive specter group. It's fucking Russia, straight up. Saying, no, those guys aren't tentacles of ours that we hide under a table and all that kind of shit. They're like, no, I'll call them right now. I got a direct line to fucking Putin, as it were. Yeah. So,
well, it's all out in the open now. I mean, that's if there's a, I was asked by somebody earlier today who was contacting me from the States and said, how's it going down? How's the reaction? And this is before the mad tweet that just dropped, in the last, well, now I guess 2 hours. This was just his press conference where he blamed Ukraine. Oh, Jesus Christ, I can't believe
it's just fucking dumb.
It's just dumb, and it's disgusting. It's as we make the analogy often, and I don't want to be flippant about it, but that Ukraine shouldn't have been wearing that dress. It's her own fault. But somebody was asking me, how's it going down? How's it being received in Ukraine and in Kiev? And aside from the fact that I was like, well, it just gave a major boost to Zelensky and his approval ratings, which it did. But also, I get the impression that a lot of Ukrainians are like, okay, all right, okay, at least we know where we stand now. There's no more second guessing. What are the Americans going to do? What's the Trump administration going to do? Waiting for the other shoe to drop. Well, that shoe has dropped, and all the presumption, all the kind of disguises and masks that people are wearing are being ripped off. Trump is a fellow traveler. He is pro Putin. He is in the bag, connected, in conjunction with Vladimir Putin. Are we okay with that? Are we okay with aligning ourselves and seeking partnership? That was the other thing I saw out of Rubio's thing. That was the thing I heard out of Rubio's post-Riyadh meeting was, we think it'll be a good way for us to find common ground, and we can seek partnership. What you're saying, Marco Rubio, is you want to seek partnership with a war criminal. Okay? Just today, all right, they hit a children's hospital. I think it was in Odessa.
Yeah.
Every single day, without fail, some civilian guy walking on the streets in Kherson is being hunted down as like human prey by drone operators on the other side of the river in a clear war crime. Every single day, these guys are committing war crimes. There are hundreds of thousands of children who have been stolen away from this country, and God knows if they're ever going to return. And we're getting reports that already they're being indoctrinated militarily to pick up arms against their fellow Ukrainians. Sick stuff. We want to partner. We want to see partnership with Putin's Russia that is doing all of this. No, sir. I say no. That is not the America that I believe in. I'm not, they bitch and moan, the MAGA types, about all the money that was in here. What about our morals? What about our beliefs? What about what we used to stand for? We should not stand for a country and in partnership with a country that commits war crimes. We've done a lot of stupid shit in the past. We've made mistakes. We are not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm not putting on rose-colored glasses. I'm talking about today. Do we want to partner with Moscow, who is killing people in a destructive war, also that they can maintain their sense of empire? And it won't stop with Ukraine. Their appetite will not be quenched with Ukraine. It can't.
Well, yeah, it can't.
That's it. It's done. We know where everybody stands. All right. Trump stands with Putin. Trump supports the war criminals in Russia and the armed forces of Russia. I don't. and I'm disgusted that our president is. And at least we know, right?
Right.
We got it.
Yep.
We know the deal.
Yeah. And
So,
and day by day, it gets more obvious, I think, to the people around him. And the more kind of like dizzy and fucked up his response gets, the more the Senate is kind of locking into what needs to be done around these kind of things. And you'll see, I believe, a continuation. That's why there's a push for a CR in the budget, because in that includes some of the Ukrainian money that would be added for another cycle, for example, in terms of Lend-Lease and other stuff that was definitely going to them. They're trying everything they can to put Ukraine on a back foot while they give Russia an exit ramp. This seems to be the deal-making attitude of them.
And lift sanctions so that they can rearm. And they can exert their economic strength as well, which isn't great, but it's enough that if they throw them a lifeline, if Trump throws him a lifeline by lifting sanctions, we're going to have a third world war. I mean, if they come back, if they are able to come off the line here in Ukraine, grab the 20% and kind of claim some sort of victory, because Putin will say, you see, NATO will never be, Ukraine will never be in NATO, or we've saved the Russian-speaking people of the East in Ukraine, which is bullshit. But he can try and spin it to the Russian people, stay in the Kremlin longer, because otherwise he's going to be screwed. Yeah, right. And lick their wounds, keep on a war economy, rebuild their forces, conscript more soldiers, and come back for a second time. But when they come back the second time, they're not going to stop in Ukraine. They'll take they'll certainly take the Baltics. The Baltics are tiny. They'll put up a hell of a fight. But I mean, I think the entire population of all three nations comes to something like 8 million people. I mean, I might even be generous.
Yeah.
So they unlike Ukraine, they will roll over Baltics. They'll take a drubbing, but they'll roll over. It's Poland. It's when they go for Poland, and I do not think that they will stop at the Polish border, because the same problem is that they'll have the momentum. They won't be able to stop. They won't be able to stop at the Polish border in Ukraine, take another breather, do another round of,
Well, partly because they have to claim the material strength of those countries to continue their push forward. So you can argue that.
Well, and the Poles won't sit there waiting.
No, and you can't, they're going to roll through and take everybody's tanks and then use those tanks to roll into the rest of Europe, which is like this weird kind of like, we'll steal a car in a way like it's fucking Mad Max, is just fucking ridiculous. And so
forced conscription of Ukrainians. And also, by the way, not for nothing, I think in that scenario, which I don't think is going to happen, because I think the Ukrainians are going to put up a hell of a defense, and they're still not going to be able to push rapidly. There's going to be no blitzkrieg in Ukraine. But let's say that does happen, that they take the breather and they come back in 5 or 10 years and they do push to the Polish border and they do absorb Ukraine and Ukraine's population. I think there's a very good possibility, and this would be our own damn fault, that a lot of Ukrainians would be like, we got betrayed. We got screwed by the Westerners, and in particular America. And yeah, I'll sign up to go kill Westerners, because my grandmother, my mother, my sister, my whatever was killed in a Russian bomb because the Americans pulled their Patriot missiles. They're not going to forget our betrayal, and it's not. I mean, people say, so what? What is this? Well, no, not so what. This is a fight for the balance of power on the globe between autocracy and liberal democracy. We're losing that battle very badly when it comes to our own nation. We got to wake up. We got to wake up. We got to start fighting. We got to actually start fighting.
Ironically, we have fellow travelers on the right who believe that Western values are under attack. They just don't realize the call is coming from inside the house. This is, anyways, we're over time. So thanks so much, Phil. Please be safe, and we will see you on Saturday.
Talk to you on Saturday. We have
Absolutely.
a big anniversary coming up on Monday, the 3-year anniversary of the war. If everything goes to plan, this Sunday's episode will be with a member of the Ukrainian diaspora in the United States. And then we'll see about maybe doing a special edition for the 3rd-year anniversary. I don't know. It might just be a commentary.
Sure.
I'll talk to you on Saturday. We'll keep an eye on this kind of stuff. But look, everybody, I mean, like, I know I keep saying this over and over again, but call your representatives, man. Now more than ever, we cannot side with Russia. We can't. They're terrorists. We are literally aligning ourselves with a terrorist state. And contact your representatives. Do it today. Don't wait. Do it today.
And contact
and not only
the
that,
Republicans
spread
in your
our
state.
content.
Yes.
Republicans in particular. Also, in addition to that, spread our content. Those of us who are out here trying to stress the point that this is really important, not just on the edge, but of course Hal's work, and of course all the other guys that are out there trying to, stress upon the American public that we're in a war. We're currently in a war with Russia. I know that's really scary, and you might think I'm being hyperbolic. I am not. We are in a war with Russia because Russia desires a war with us. And we got to tell everybody contact your representatives. Now is not the time for inaction. Now is the time to take the fight to the Russians and by proxy Donald Trump. So
that's right. Thanks so much, brother. Appreciate it.
Don't wait.
Be safe,
right,
and we'll see you on Saturday.
Talk to you on Saturday. All right, buddy.
Excellent.
Later.
Thank you so much. All right, off he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Real quick before I'm going to raid Cliff Schecter's show in a couple of seconds, but I want to show you something. It's part of the story that we've heard about this. Like, Trump did this thing yesterday, and I'll do it this afternoon. I'll also do that. I think the Hannity interview we have as well, so I'll cover that this afternoon just to slice that up for you. But there was a big part of Trump's push and Elon Musk's thing that there are all these people over the age of 100 that are getting Social Security checks. Bullshit. In a country of 340 million people, there are about 90,000 people that are listed as getting Social Security checks who are over 100. That number is not that strange in a country of our size with the aging populace that we have. If there's some overlap in there, it's probably 12 people. Meanwhile, this whole thing about how there are these people who are 150 or whatever that are getting checks, nonsense. According to the census, there's 85,000 people or so in America that are 100 years or older, which corresponds very well with the 90,000 that are listed on the Social Security rolls. And this idea that there are people, where is it? He shared this table on social media. Let me open this thing and have to look at it. I don't go to X, but this is his whole stupid thing. These are the people who, they didn't file a death certificate. So these are just people without a death certificate filed. Checks don't go out to these people, though. That's the trick he's playing. So this in the agency database, over 100 with no known death, including 3.5 million people in their 120s, 1.3 in their 150s. The numbers he mentioned appear to be from a system called the Numident, the Rosetta Stone-like computer database that contains basic information on every Social Security number ever issued. It covers a far larger universe of people than all Americans currently receiving Social Security checks. It's about all the people who've ever had Social Security in the process. And part of it is what happens to their Social Security benefits if somebody was deserved their Social Security benefits after they've died, and it might be up for grabs or they've gone missing or whatever over the years. There's a myriad of reasons why it keeps track of it but doesn't send checks out. The SSA has also concluded that the group of Americans receiving payments containing few people who should probably be considered dead. The agency's Inspector General found in a 2023 report that nearly 19 million people in the Numident appear to be over 100 years old and did not have a recorded death. The SSA concluded that almost none of them were receiving payments from the agency. In fact, that was part of why the agency argued it wasn't worth the expense to try and clean up information about people who largely died before the advent of electronic records. Elon Musk did not consider this program in the Numident, said Kathleen Romeg, the Director of Social Security and Disability Policy at the Center of Budget and Policy Priorities. Even to call it a problem is an exaggeration. It's an issue. As the IG report makes clear, it's not a problem. She added, in the sense that people are not receiving benefits. This is a propagandist looking for something out of the ordinary. That's what this is. This doesn't shock any of you guys, but I would like to give you that little piece of ammunition before I let you have your morning, and I will see you guys this afternoon. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. Now we can run it over there, CSL, if we want to do a raid on Cliff right now. Everybody, on Twitch, we're gonna raid Cliff Schechter show, and you can throw that in there for me and just throw in a House Parks raid and let them know what we're up to. Why does this always go to this thing? There we go. And I will see you guys this afternoon at 3 o'clock. So much to cover, so much stuff, and not the least of which is this kind of like bloviating horse shit that he's passing off as like discoveries. 80% of the stuff he's mentioning has been in fucking Rand Paul's bullshit little government spending report for a decade and a half. Well, along with Ron Paul and all these other people. It's old news. It's not changing a fucking thing. And even all of it together in a $7 trillion budget for the government doesn't even fucking chart. You could wipe it all out with like whole cloth, and it still wouldn't make a meaningful difference. It wouldn't even pay for a month's worth of the interest on the debt. The question is, by it being there, does it make more money or stabilize societies or deal with migration or all the other things that those things are purported or purposed to do in a way that actually benefits us long term, so that you could shave off a month of the interest by paying it all off at once, or over time it actually has a rising return. Never mind the protection for human lives. So we'll send a raid to our dear friend Cliff Schechter, and I will see you guys this afternoon. Hold on. Oh, I've got to throw the music in. And don't forget, like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show, and enjoy your afternoon, will you? And to everybody saying they can't tell if I look like a pilot, or a pirate, a biker, or I'm reading and talking at the same time. Always a mistake. A pirate, a biker, or Jesus Christ posing as Chris Cornell, or Gene Simmons from the Revenge Tour. The correct answer is all of the above. You know what I'm saying? Oh, yes, baby. Yeah. All right, come on. Oh, yes, come on. See you guys later this afternoon, baby.